Welcome to this brief video introduction to the Shang Han Lun. Shang Han Lun is a medical text written by Zhang Zhong Jing around 1800 years ago. It is regarded as one of the most important classics of traditional Chinese herbal medicine. Unlike previous texts, it was the first Chinese book to systematically outline the principles and methods used for determining prescriptions of medicinals in what we now call traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM. These are integrated within a distinct system that describes the progress of diseases caused by external factors. In describing these diseases, Zhang Zhong Jing gives indications for their syndrome differentiation. This is central to the way TCM doctors determine appropriate treatment of their patients. The theories that are proposed integrate practical experience and classical medical studies from that time, resulting in a manual of herbal treatments that is both theoretical and clinical in format, and most importantly, that is still relevant to this day. It is important to state that studying the Shang Han Lun implies not just studying the text itself, but also studying the numerous commentaries and interpretations written by famous doctors in the centuries since it was written. We'll first consider the meaning of the title. Shang means to damage or injure. Han means cold. Lun means theory or discourse. These are some common translations of the title you will find in the literature. The Chinese word Han, or cold, merits some explanation. There are two ways to consider this: on the general level, which explains the meaning of the text in the title, and on a more narrow level, that is its use in the text itself. The general level is the broad sense of the word implied by the title. In this case, Han implies any of the pathogenic factors that were believed to cause disease, that is, heat, cold, damp, wind, dryness, or fire. The reasons for this interpretation are found in two other classics. In the Su Wen of the Huangdi Neijing, the quote states that if we consider heat diseases, that is, diseases that manifest fever, they should be considered within the category of Shang Han diseases. The Classic of Difficulties, or Nanjing, states in its 58th difficulty that Shang Han has 5 categories: wind strike, cold damage, damp warmth, febrile disease, and warmth disease. And we indeed find diseases corresponding to these categories in the text. That gives an idea of the meaning of the term in the title. In the text itself, or what one could term the narrow level, the word cold is generally used in its strict interpretation. The book consists of a preface followed by the main body, which consists of medical and herbal text. The content and style of writing of the preface are completely different to that of the main text, which leads many critics to think that it was not written by Zhang Zhong Jing himself. The preface expresses regret for the way medicine is practiced in his time, and offers some biographical details of the master, explaining that he chose to study medicine because of the death of many members of his family. The idealistic nature of the text of the preface is reminiscent of the Hippocratic Oath. The main body of the text discusses diseases and their treatment. It consists of 398 clauses divided into 6 chapters or sections. The chapters are named after the Liu Jing, often translated as the 6 channels or 6 confirmations. Towards the end of the Han dynasty, that is around 200 CE, Zhang Zhong Jing originally wrote a text called Shang Han Lun, which can be translated as the treatise on cold damage and miscellaneous diseases. In the succeeding Jin dynasty, Wang Shuhe edited the text into 2 volumes, that is the Shang Han Lun, or treatise on cold damage, and the Jingui Yao Lue, or essential prescriptions from the Gold Cabinet. After that, Excerpts appear in the writings of various doctors, but it is only in the Song dynasty, when the government established the Medical Literature Editing Bureau, that the text was standardized, edited and printed. Another important addition in the Song dynasty was an annotated version by Cheng Wuji. No version from the Song dynasty has survived, and the earliest extant version is the Zhao Kaimei edition, a Ming dynasty version, which is believed to be identical to the first text edited in the Song dynasty. This is the main version relied on by most authors these days. The Emperor Qianlong commissioned an important work which included a corrected version of the Shang Han Lun and the Jingui Yaolue in the Qing dynasty. There were voluminous commentaries on these two works in the Ming and the Qing dynasties. As the text went through various changes throughout the ages, researchers tried to unravel which parts of the texts are original and how the original text was arranged. Discussion of the Shang Han Lun in China is very Sinocentric. It is worth mentioning that the text had a huge influence on medicine in Korea and Japan. In fact, Kanpo, the leading form of herbal medicine in Japan, is based on the Shang Han Lun. Also, it is interesting to note that Japanese scholars claim to have an earlier printed edition, named the Kangping edition, which apparently arrived in Japan thanks to the extensive cultural exchanges that took place towards the end of the Chinese Tang dynasty. Arguments for its dating are based on its brevity and on taboos on the use of characters associated with the current emperor's name. The Shang Han Lun was written about 200 CE towards the end of the Han dynasty. The Han dynasty marked the first consolidation of the Chinese people, both territorially and culturally. It was a period of stability, and in general we have a lot of information on what happened then, as it was richly documented. By the end of the Han dynasty, a number of classic medical texts were already generally established, including the Huangdi Jing, or Yellow Emperor's Internal Classic, the Nanjing, or Classic of Difficulties, and the Pharmacopoeia of Shen Nong. For context, in the Ayurvedic tradition, the Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita had been set down in writing in India. In the West, the Hippocratic Corpus had been collected in Alexandria. This was an extension of the teachings of Hippocrates of Kos. Zhang Zhong Jing lived towards the end of the Han dynasty. At this time, the Chinese Empire was devastated by war and famine and plagued by social unrest. There is no contemporary information on Zhang Zhong Jing, which is unusual as the Han dynasty was well documented. Nevertheless, there is strong circumstantial and secondary evidence that he was an actual historical person, a doctor of great skill who held a position of some authority in Mieyang, today called Nanyang, located in modern-day Henan province. This city lies just south of the Yellow River, and today you can visit the medical sanctuary that houses the supposed tombstone of Zhang Zhong Jing. His family name was Zhang Ji, and his courtesy name was Zhang Zhong Jing. It has been proposed that he was born in 150 CE and died in 219 CE, and he was contemporary with another famous Chinese physician of that time, Hua Tuo. He is said to have studied medicine under his uncle Zhang Bozi, and it is claimed that he became Grand Protector of Changsha, although no documentation of this has survived. He had a number of students, one of whose work has been recorded. Otherwise, as Zhang Zhongjing's writings began to be appreciated over time, many myths were created about him. It's interesting to compare the style of writing of his text with that of his Greek contemporary, Galen of Pergamon, who was to influence Western medicine for many centuries. Even though Zhang Zhongjing is critical of other doctors of his time, the preface is written in a very modest style, as compared with Galen's vitriolic ad hominem attacks on his contemporaries. In terms of the medical text itself, the language is succinct, precise and practical, compared with Galen's wordy and infamously long sentences, which mix opinion with recommendations. Finally, a few words on where Shang Han Lun stands today in herbal practice. One could say that there are two types of herbal formula strategies in China today, and they can be termed Fang and Fang. Fang are the most commonly administered formulas today. They are based on the accumulation of experience of Chinese doctors throughout the ages. In addition to Zhang Zhong Jing's formulas, these doctors may use any of the formulas developed in the succeeding centuries. Secondly, there are the Fang. That is where doctors only administer formulas from the Shang Han Lun and the Jingui Yao Lue, with individual herbs added to address specific patient conditions. There are currently very few doctors who practice this in China, although the ones who do are very highly regarded, as this requires a deep understanding of the text to see how the patient's condition relates to the formula explanation. The Japanese herbal medicine Kanpo translates as Han-era formula medical studies. Although it emphasizes Zhang Zhong Jing's formulas, it too uses formulas developed in later centuries in China, as well as some developed in Japan. These options could be summarized in the dichotomy that either our ancestors knew everything and we have a problem understanding and interpreting this, or whether one can say that there has been progress since that time. The Western mind will favor the Shifang approach, but Jingfang can be understood in Chinese cultural terms because of the great respect accorded to their ancestors. In any case, there is a lot to be learned from the Shang Han Lun, and we can observe that Chinese medical theory has had a huge influence on herbalism in Eastern Asia. One example of this is that Xiao Chai Hu Tang, a formula from the Shang Han Lun, is the most prescribed formula in Japan. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you'll join me in future videos in this series.